Hello, my fellow witches, sorcerers, and other magic practitioners. My name is Aiden, and today's going to be a little bit of a more conceptual video, I guess, is how I put it. I'm going to be talking about mysticism within the folk setting, within folk practice, and it's not going to be particularly... you'll see how it is. You'll see how it is, and you will understand what I mean. So I guess what we should begin with is folk magic, what it is inherently. Folk magic in and of itself is the practice of magic, but it is not centered around ornate rituals or fancy settings or all this like elaborate ritual. It's more focused around the mundane. It's focused around the home. It's focused around what you have on hand. It's not focused around what you don't have. It's a very essential part of almost every culture, and I think that we need to talk about a lot of things regarding it. So the following videos that are coming out soon will be focusing on folk magic and the importance of it culturally, socially, and every other aspect of life. So let's talk about with the hard hitter, mysticism. Mysticism is quite the complicated topic. Mysticism exists throughout everything. Everything is mystical and has a mystical nature to it. It's just if you choose to explore it or not. And mysticism will inherently reveal itself to you in ways that you would not think of normally. You can find the mystical within the mundane, and you can find the mystical within the folk, the people's magic. Magic is something that goes beyond ornate ritual, it goes outside of what is expected. And I think that we often forget that the mystical permeates into everything. Everything is mystical and nothing is separate from it. All is divine, nothing is separate. And we find within these mystical moments that understanding starts to take over. We start to see more things appear before us, things that we normally would not see. And when we step out of the bubble of this is this and that is that, and we start to see them unified as one whole thing instead of as two separate things, we start to see where things blend together. This is where folk magic is born. When people see magical natures inside of things, they're able to take those things and kind of blend it into their own practice. We see this often come in the form of prayers. Prayers are a huge source of folk magic. It's found all throughout the world. People writing down prayers, petitions, whatever you want to call it, they'll write it down, or they'll say it out loud, say these charms, often calling on various spirits, folkloric and religious. And again, those aren't even separate things. Those blend together into one unified, beautiful, consistent theme. And stripping away the layers of mysticism, we start to see that it is permeating into everything, and it's not really just this separate entity from everything around us, and we start to understand it on a deeper, more personal level. And I think folk magic actually achieves that far better than ceremonial magic. The ceremonial magicians often find themselves struggling to obtain strange herbs and rare materials so that they can call upon the divine, whereas folk magicians often can just find a divine outside in nature. They can look around their house and find divinity, find magic. And we often neglect that. It's just mindset that we have that ceremonial magic is inherently better, that it has this more true mystical core to it, whereas folk magic is devoid of mysticism, which is just wrong. I feel like we lose the mysticism in folk magic quite frequently, and I think it's time to take that back. Folk magic is mystical. Folk magic has tons of mystical aspects to it, and I think we need to acknowledge that. We need to not ignore the mystical aspects found within the earth itself, found within the home. We can find folk magic all around us, hanging a horseshoe on your wall. You can find it in the plants outside. You can find it in the rumors, the myths of your neighborhood. That's all folk magic. You see it everywhere. It's not something that should be disregarded. It's powerful, it's primal, it's ornate. It's ornate in its own way that is not like ceremonial magic. There's so much that goes into folk magic that people don't realize, and is passed off as a simple thing that can't be mystical. Why can't it be mystical? Why can't it have that mystical aspect to it? People can do mysticism through folk magic. They can learn the ways of the spirits. They can learn from the spirits through folk magic. It's not something that separates from the great mystical arts of Agrippa or of Crowley, where they have to like do all these conjurations and all this other stuff that isn't really necessary. They really forget oftentimes that what can be found around the house can be just as mystical as what can be found in other strange places. And really, if everything is permeated by the divine, why do we have to wait around for specific days, certain auspicities, certain everything for divinity to reveal itself to us when we can find it everywhere? Because that is the true nature of folk mysticism. It's finding divinity within everything, finding it within all the world around us, within the very hands that we have. We find it within our own hands, our own beautiful hands. We're able to find mysticism. We're able to see the mystical revealed before us instead of it having to wait for a special opportunity. So I think that that is the most important point, is that it can be found everywhere and not just in specific places where we have to dress things up, make things look fancy, have to have all these different elaborate rituals. Instead, we can find it within our very core. We can find mysticism within everything. So that is the start of my folk magic video series. I'm going to be doing a few others, just kind of talking about it and why I think it's important and why I think it's disregarded so much. So I hope you enjoyed this more conceptual video where I'm talking less specific practical things and more abstract concepts. I hope it translates for you, and leave any feedback you have down below. I would love to hear anything that you have to say. And so yeah. Thank you all for watching. I really hope you enjoyed this video, and I will see you in the next ones. Goodbye.